It's a hard world to get a break in, and the good things have been taken. But girl, there are ways to make certain things fade. Oh, I'm dressed in these rags, I will sable someday. Hear what I say, I'm gonna ride the serpent. No more time spent sweating. Hear my command, I'm breaking loose. It ain't no use me down. Stick around, but baby, remember, it's my life and I'll do what I want. It's my life and I'll think what I want. Show me I'm wrong, have me some time, but someday you'll treat me real fine. Now there'll be women and a fortune who just want... Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, citizens of planet Earth and beyond, stretching far into the galaxies, as far as the eye and the imagination can take us. Welcome to the Pork and Bean Show, starring Pork Cunningham and Frank Oliver Beans. We're going to introduce you to new thoughts, put questions in your head, and perhaps have you consider things you've never thought about before. Where the paranormal becomes the normal, where unreal becomes real, and where love is everything. Fasten your seatbelts and enjoy the ride.
Well, yeah. For me and the Lord, we gotta understand him. We're on a mission from God.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Pork and Bean Show. My name is Pork Cunningham, and it's my great pleasure to introduce my distinguished co-host, the Guru of Love, the Julia Child of Soul Food, a man of the times, no times and no space, and a wanted felon in 38 states, 4 provinces, 5 continents, 3 territories, 1 kingdom, room 16 of the Shady Days Motel in Akron, Ohio, and did +4 at Leavenworth. And for what? Simply for the crime of speaking his mind. I give you Frank Oliver Beans.
Hi,
Frank.
I talked to you about not talking about the Shady Days incident, the Shady Days Motel. That's
Yeah. Can you? What happened there anyway? I mean, I've heard. I mean, it's like it's an urban myth.
Things that like that can't be spoken in mixed company.
Okay. Well, will you tell me about it privately one day? Because it's
just still too raw.
Oh yeah. Well, you've got pain. You've got pain.
Scarred.
You're scarred. So what's happening with you lately, Frank? What's going on?
Well, I was happy in my own little delusional world when I got a message from you that we're going to do a show today, and that I was excited about that. Oh boy, it's Saturday and it's time to do a show.
Oh, So you look forward to
And
these
one of
shows.
my favorite folks is our going to be our guest.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say that I'd like to thank Kevin Royce for last week. He was amazing.
Kevin was amazing.
Kevin was amazing. I'd also like to say we've got
and to be a foretell of how this is going to go, we left him in tears at the end. So
well, that's what we want to do. Yeah, I mean that's our objective, right?
well, yeah.
I mean, if we don't have Sam in a ball of blubbering mess, then we haven't done our job, right?
Either in gratitude or servitude, either way.
So anyway, so I had something I just wanted to share. I got a book from a friend of mine. He sent me a book called SASQUATCH.
SASQUATCH.
SASQUATCH by
Graham McSkimming. I know.
Yeah, good guy. So anyway, yeah, I'd recommend this book to anybody. It's got a bunch of quotes from Sasquatch people. I'm just going to do one quick one with you, and then I'm going to introduce Sam. So I'll just do it randomly, and I can't pronounce the names, by the way, because these are the official names. But
so it's going to start the show off by being very awkward. Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. Love your heart. Live with your heart. Pray with your heart. Instead of praying by expressing desire, pray when the heart beseeches you to express itself to God. And that was by Iquitas of the Takan Tatanta clan. And he's got a bunch of those things here. And a lot of them talk about all one and all connected. One more. If you try to think your way out of the problems you have, all you will have done is think about your problems. Chief Bushoma of the Takan Tatanta of the Eastern Lands. So that's kind of like a good little guide that you can look at every day, kind of like as an inspirational thing, right?
I love it.
Yeah, I really do like it. Anyway, there it is, guys.
How do you think you got all that information? Was he like out in the woods with dictation, or was it? You think it was like channeled, or?
I think he channels them. He hears that they. You know, we all have different ways of receiving their messages. With me, it's a lot of thought placement and teaching and glyph, different ways. But with him, I guess it's the classic kind of channeling kind of stuff, I think. So anyway, so yeah, like I said, Kevin Royce was a great guest. And who do we have? We've got your friend Peter coming up in a couple of weeks. And then what was the lady's name?
Graham. He's like a real interesting guy. When he was 14 years old, he went for a walkabout for like 2 years. He basically had a sheet around him and a
wow.
rifle, and he just went off into the outback.
Oh my God, that must have been quite a journey.
It's amazing, yeah. And he kind of would hang out with the Aboriginal elders and tribes and stuff. So.
Okay, so yeah, we had Kevin Royce on, and we're having your friend Peter from Australia, who you said did the 2-month walkabout, and that must have kickstarted some kind of incredible journey for him.
He has a pretty powerful connection with angels and stuff, and with Christ and all this kind of stuff. And these angels would come to him and have these visions, and they're pretty badass because the angels that he was hanging out with were like these warrior type guys. And real interesting stuff. And he has visions of the future and, you know, all that kind of stuff that we like that other people can do that I can't.
Right. And the lady's name that we're having on next week is called Hillary Reeves. I met her at the spiritual Sasquatch retreat there that Kelly and Kiwani put on.
Right.
So anyway, let's, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today.
Can you see this? These are like, I don't know what you call them, liver spots, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get old. Don't get old, or else this kind of stuff happens to you. See?
Oh man.
These little spots.
Wow.
If you can avoid getting old, I would, you know, I'd avoid it.
I've avoided it so far.
Maybe eat some wheatgrass or something, or carrot juice or something.
So far, I've avoided it. I haven't matured at all.
I had a rough childhood and a rough life. That's why it's looking like that.
Okay, so anyway, so our guest today, or our victim, but we don't like to tell them that, but we'll call him a guest for now. You'll find out. Just joking. But we like to have fun. So anyway, Sam Chandler grew up as an East Coast urban kid with a rebellious spirit. Years of high strangeness and mystical events at a remote cabin deep in the Canadian bush triggered an insatiable desire for understanding inside of him. In 2012, he had an incident that would change his life forever and lead him down a path to understanding the enigma commonly referred to as Sasquatch. If there is one thing Sam has learned since beginning this journey, it's that the Sasquatch people are more fascinating than he could have ever imagined. So without further ado, let's bring Sam on. Hey, Sam, you there?
Yeah.
Gotta turn on his camera, man. There you go.
I did, man. Hey, I got this thing down. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. So I'm really intrigued with the Canadian wilderness kind of thing, being a Canadian and whatever. But anyway, why don't you start?
I turned my camera off because I don't want to be selfish.
Why don't you just start with kind of how just the beginning of your story, and it doesn't have to be Sasquatch related. Just when you kind of understood that there was more to life than what you realized, and kind of thing. Or when did you have your awakening, or whatever people call it, or begin to suspect things?
Or you can
first
talk about tattoos. Those are cool.
The first experience of my life that really made me realize that there's more to life than what we see with our five senses is when I was 8 years old and I saw a Sasquatch in my bedroom. And
wow.
that was probably the first thing. It wasn't menacing by any means, and it was a little one. And it was just in my bedroom one night when I was about to go to sleep, just laying in bed, and I heard something, and I opened my eyes, and there was a little one on the other side of my dresser, and just looking over the dresser at me, and smiled and laughed, and it scared me to death. But it wasn't, trying to be mean. It was just a little one trying to, with no one to talk to about it, no one to relate to about it. You have to, put that stuff inside, and you have to just went through my period of playing my role of my human role, of just being who I'm supposed to be as a person.
So how did you describe it? Did you see him like fully materialized?
Way
Or
out of
how did it look?
Fully materialized. It was dusk. It was in the summertime, so you know how the sun sets late in the summer, and I was in bed about to go to sleep. So it was probably like 9 or 10, something around that time of night. And so just enough light that you can see really well in the room. Just saw him or her, I'm not sure who it was, but just saw them in the bedroom, and they just laughed. And that was pretty much it. It wasn't intended to be a scary experience, but that's just how I reacted to it.
Well, you were 8 years old, right?
You didn't remember them coming or going, right? It was just,
Nope.
it was like
Just there.
whatever, you blinked or you went back to sleep or something and they were gone, right?
Just there. I closed my eyes because I was so scared. I just closed my eyes.
Yeah.
So what did you think you were looking at? Did you know what you were looking at when you saw it?
No idea. I had no idea about Sasquatch back then. Like, I remember seeing like the Patty film and reading about a little bit about Sasquatch, but I was in Northern Virginia back then, So to me as a kid, Sasquatch was like a West Coast thing, or it wasn't on the East Coast. So I didn't know what it was. And so I told my parents about it, but they just thought it was imagination, which is understandable from a parent's point of view. And
Kind of like the boogeyman in the closet kind of thing, right? They probably figured.
Probably, yeah. I mean, they just that whole year. That was the year that I really realized what death was. I remember in that same house. just having the realization of what death was. And you know how that, and you get this like, and it's not even the real death. It's just what you think death's going to be, where it's just black, you know, it just ends and it's just blackness from that point out. And so as a kid, that's, you know, that scared me to death. So it was one of those years that just transformed me. But, you know, since then it's just been, you know, the 20 or so years of ignoring all that stuff and just trying to play a role, and then waking up out of that since then.
Well, I want to ask you a couple things. Did you see the Sasquatch person's face?
Yeah.
Was it more human or more ape-like? Because there's a couple different types up. There's some that look more human, some look more ape-like. How did this guy look?
Like an Ewok. So more
like an Ewok.
Yeah. Not, you know, the young ones look different. They don't look like, they just don't look like the adults in the face, the ones that I've seen, the young ones. So the young ones I've seen are just super cute. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. So this one just looked like a little Ewok. So it wasn't really human or ape. It was just kind of cute.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is that you said in that year you realized your realization of death. But how did you realize that? What happened? What triggered that?
He freezes up and blames it on me. It's really.
What was that realization of death that you had? Whatever. How did that come about?
My youngest son went through it like 3 or 4 years ago too. It's just this like epiphany you have out of nowhere. But it's not the correct, it's hard to explain. It's not the correct ideal of death. It's not how death really is. It's like this, it's not really, it's like an epiphany of false death. And it's scary as a child, you know, because you kind of realize that your physical body is not eternal. I don't know if that's just a necessary step that you have to go through as part of your incarnation, you know, to it's like a base program that you get as a young child, and you have to work your way out of that thought process or that idea of death. If that's like part of your karmic baggage that you're brought here with. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was something I had in a past life that I have to deal with in this one. And so I don't know if that's what it was or what.
Well, this thing of seeing a Sasquatch in your room, that's pretty more common than what's really reported on. I mean, I've heard several stories of that. But what's interesting about that is that you were so young and that Sasquatch was so young. But then when you got to be a certain age, then you can start processing all like, well, what does that mean? And I mean, because it has a lot of implications, because the Sasquatch definitely was not random.
Right.
You were living in that house long enough, and they must have known you were there, and they kind of figured out who you were, and sent a young one over there to say hello, you know?
Yeah, and that was the first year I went to the cabin that it started picking up. And I can't remember if that night was, if that first sighting happened after I'd gone to the cabin or before I'd gone to the cabin. I can't remember. But it was definitely the same year. So it all ties in somehow.
Yeah, I don't believe in the randomness of it. I guess it's possible. I mean, you could be really, really lucky and happen to see one or something, but generally it's not random. No. For instance, I mean, I was at the place where I was going to be hosting my gathering. It doesn't look like it's going to happen at that place anyway, because of the world today. But I was there yesterday, and I was walking up there, and I saw a guy who was taking pictures. He had a great big long extended super deluxe camera, whatever. I asked him what he was taking pictures of, and he said birds. And I asked him if he had been here a lot, and he said that he had been there for like going on 30 years every year. He was hosting like campouts with scouts and whatever. So I asked him, "Oh, have you ever experienced anything weird here?" Because this is right in the place where they're always interacting. I mean, they build their structures there. They run around like, I mean, it's just really active. But I didn't really tell him, what I was talking about. But he he didn't see anything weird. I know that for sure. He just said, yeah, we saw a bear one time or something. So it's just like, if they don't want to contact you, you could be right beside them for like 50 years or right in their territory, and you're just not going to see them. They have to have a reason for wanting to contact you specifically. And that speaks to that too.
When people see them in the forest or have experiences with them, most of the time it's not, people expect it to be like a or something, but most of the time it's something really subtle or obscure and nuanced, and people just don't pick up on it. You know, it just kind of like, they just miss it just right over their head. So I think there's a lot more people that experience things with them that just don't recognize it at all. So them to, you know, our idea of weird is like way different than their idea of weird. So like weird to me is normal stuff, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of these people, some of these people, I mean, you know, they'll even deny, they'll try to rationalize, even if they've seen one, they'll try to rationalize it away. So they're obviously not going to pick up on the subtle nuances. You've got to kind of be open to that, you know? So
You got to work on that stuff.
What happened after the bedroom incident? And when did you actually realize that what you had seen? Some years later, I imagine, eh?
Yeah, like several years later. Well, we started going up to this cabin around that time in my life. And my neighbors were the ones that owned the property. And so they invited us up there and we started going up to this cabin. And pretty much since we started going up there, it's pretty remote, you know, it's an hour or two from the nearest town. And by town, I mean like a one intersection type town. So when you get back there, you just don't see anybody. It's just whoever you're with and whatever's out there in the forest with you. So when we started going up there, it's a very special place. The energy is very different than anything else I had ever experienced at that point. So I just experienced, you know, weird things, orbs in the woods, screams, noises, trees falling over for no reason, cabin gets slapped in the middle of the night, voices, talking, whispers. And, you know, when you don't know what's going on, it can be scary, but it never felt real scary around the cabin. It just was interesting. And the more I went up there, the more I went up there, and the more I went up there, it just became commonplace for these things to happen. So, you know, you get up early in the morning, walk up the hill to the cookhouse, and there would be footsteps that would, you know, like where the tree line is, you'd hear footsteps walking away from the tree line back into the forest. And it was bipedal. It was definitely a person, and several people around camp would hear it, and everyone would just kind of shrug their shoulders, you know? And, just things like that would happen and keep going. And man, I could go on an hour just talking about all the things, you know, it's just little things happen. And it doesn't happen every day, but like every time you go up there, something would happen. And so as I got older, it still hadn't even clicked yet about what I was experiencing, because in my mind, I was still thinking, well, Sasquatch is a West Coast thing. And they're not on the eastern side, because this was in Ontario. And so I don't think it really clicked with me until one year I was fishing on the shoreline next to the boathouse. And it was late at night, like 10 or 11 at night. And so it was dark. And on the ridge line on the adjacent shore, I heard somebody walking along in the tree line, and it was loud, big footsteps, you know, and I remember fishing and thinking to myself, that's a person. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that's a person. And we're on 5,000 acres of private land, so it's not a person. And it just sounded huge. And I think that was the first time I was like really convinced that there was Sasquatch up there. Something like that. I don't remember the exact year that happened, but it was before everything started to pick up. Because now that I'm looking back, I realized that they were giving me clues and hints. You know, they were like trying to wake me up a little bit at a time. They weren't. I think what happened looking back now was when I had the first encounter with the little one when I was young, it scared me so bad they didn't want to do that again. So they didn't want to bring that type of interaction right off the bat. you know, so they had to kind of wake me back up to them, to their presence. So that got me looking into it more. And, you know, so when I went back in 2012, I had finally gotten to the point where I was ready to really see what was going on. I really wanted to experience it. So I went out to a place, solo camp one night. And so I got out there late one night and set my hammock up, and there was wolves howling. There's 2 wolf packs that are on the south side of the lake and the north side of the lake. So I strung my hammock up, and I was in my hammock and I was listening to the wolves howl. And I turned my headlamp off, you know, trying to go to sleep. So I turned my headlamp off, and I was just laying there, just trying to attune to the, you know, to the area. And a tree fell behind me. Just loud, like crack, boom, right behind me. And I knew someone was there. And so I was like, all right, cool. I'm ready. And it got quiet. You know, the wolves stopped howling, and and I just laid there and I fell asleep. And I think it was about, I'm not sure what time it was because I don't use clocks and watches up there because there's just no use for it. So I want to say it's probably 1 or 2, and I felt a finger like right here on my head, and no, right there. And when I felt it, I, you know, opened my eyes, and I was like, what is that? And I felt this energy rush come through me from my head down to my feet. You know, I was laying on my hammock, so it just went straight through me to my feet, and then it came back up out of my head. And there was a message, and the message said, "Get out of here." And I was there to work through this fear that I had and try and figure out what's going on. So when I heard that message, you know, I was like, "You're just freaking yourself out, man. Just relax. You know, we're going to do this. Let's get through this. That's why you're here." And then I felt it again, and the energy came through a little bit harder, came back out my head, and the message said, "Get out of here now." The energy came through hard, really hard. Like every molecule in my body felt it. And it was hot and cold, and every emotion you could ever feel came to my feet, right back out my head. And the message said, "Get out of here now, or you're going to die." And I was like, I took that one a little more serious. And I was like, all right. And I had this 2-way radio in the pouch of my hammock, because my dad was in the cabin about a mile and a half away. And if I, you know, needed to talk to him, I just needed so I had my walkie-talkie, and it started to go freak me out more than anything else. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. So I hopped up out of my hammock, and I went to the boat. I left all my stuff. I just got in the boat, and I took off. And it was like a very clear night. It was in October, so it was cold, but it was clear, and there was a moon above, and that was the only thing in the sky was the moon. And the sky was like this greenish, the moonlight, in the way that it was reflecting off, you know, everything. And that was the most vulnerable I've ever felt in my life at that point, because it felt like something was gonna come out of the sky and grab me and pull me out of the boat and take me away. And I made it to the boathouse, you know, and I secured the boat, went up to the cabin, and went to sleep. Nothing happened. But so that was that was what really woke me up. And on several levels. It wasn't just
so
one way.
It scared the heck out of you.
Yeah. It was looking back now, it's very multi-layered to it. So it's not just one thing in particular.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting, because, you know, they've never really ever scared me personally. They tested my metal once really seriously, but that's kind of weird. Why do you think that happened? You know, why do you think that? Do you think he just really didn't want you around? He wasn't friendly with you?
No, it was like because I was scared back then. You know, I was very fearful of what was going on, because there were things that had happened up to that point around that property where you would walk a little bit and then you'd hit like a wall of fear, and you'd hit it, and it would basically be like, stop right there, don't come any further. And if you took a step back, that fear went away. So it was like That happened several places. And then there were times around the cabin at night where you would walk up the hill to go do something or come down the hill for something, and you would get that fear. And it was, it was in your solar plexus, like in your lower area. And so I always associated them with that fear back then. And what I think happened was, or what I know happened was, that was if you want to be scared, I'm going to give you something to be scared about type thing. Kind of like how your parents say, like, oh, if you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about, It was like, if you really want to be scared, I'll show you what being scared is. And so that was the extreme level of fear, the most extreme level of fear that you can feel. Because
you felt in the boat going back, right? Was this extreme level of fear?
The whole experience. It was working up. It was like, this can't scare you. Didn't work. That next level, tried to scare you, didn't work. The next level was like, okay, now I'm going to go. Because now I'm a little, I'm very uncomfortable at that point. Get in the boat, even more scared. And I've been in some stuff up to that point in my life where, like, I grew up in the city. So I grew up getting in fights, and I've been stabbed in the face and, had a knife sticking out of my face and was bleeding while I was sitting on the curb and knew at that point I was going to die. And when I was sitting on the curb that time when I got stabbed, like, I had a realization come over me, because I remember sitting there thinking, like, never knew I was going to die right here. This is never what I expected. But I had a realization come over me that said, you're not going to die. And I remember thinking, okay, cool, not going to die here. But this was different. And that didn't scare me. But this experience scared me. So even sitting on the curb knowing I was going to die didn't scare me. But this experience scared the crap out of me. And so I think that was the lesson from that one. And that was my first lesson. Because ever since then, now I know where my level of fear is. And I've never.
That's a clear gift. One of the things that both the dog man and the Sasquatch, it's a blessing, right? Actually, it's a gift to, like, reach out to that outer edges of what fear is, because it has a limit,
Yeah. Oh yeah, it does. And I've never been there since, because I know where my limit is. And now, since then, all my lessons have led up to, we don't have anything to fear. There's nothing to fear, So it was like my baseline to start my learning from.
The same goes for anger too. I mean, everything, just like our voice has a limit, our feelings have a limit. And that's interesting to know that, because all of our anxieties or issues are within the limit. As soon as you go beyond your fear, you go beyond your anger to rage, to the end of it, then that zone of anxiety, depression, and animosity, being the victim of what all that stuff doesn't really exist, because you exist beyond it, and it kind of reframes it. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is this feeling that went down through the top of your head down to your feet. That did it feel like something was being poured into you, or like was it an electric shock, or was
it was an energy transfer, like Shaktipat,
And that's what I was going to say. That Shaktipat, and you were given 3 Shaktipats, and I was thinking there's 2 ways you could have taken that. That is to get out of here, or to get out of here, you're going to die, right?
Right.
If it had been, if you had looked at it like that, is to go into that energy and meditate, which this is like years later you started meditating. But if you had meditated on that, right, that would have taken you out of this world into that divine world. And that energy is still inside you.
Yeah, it is. It woke me up. That was my Kundalini awakening. That was the energy coming in, and then the energy coming back out. That was my, waking up.
And this is what Brian and I talk about this. That's a really, really, really high function of an enlightened being, to be able to do that to somebody, to transfer the energy and understanding and meanings, just on that level. And it's God energy, okay? It's a life force in its raw, pure, And we don't recognize it because it's just something that happens. Like, what was that? But that
Yeah.
is the river of life itself.
Right. Yeah. It's divine energy, like just in a stream, just poured into you. And it gets everything spinning in the road that it's supposed to. It just pushes out every blockage that you have, and just never the same after that.
I want to ask you a couple questions on that. Do you think there was a download of information with that energy too? Because quite often when I've had energy streaming in through the top of my head and whatever, and I've got downloads with it. You just seem to, there's a greater knowing after amazing things like that, I find.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Since then, yes, but at that time, no. I think what at that time was I was so stuck in my physical human existence that I had blockages. All my energy blockages were keeping that information from coming through. So someone had to come and punch that out, And so that's what that was. It punched all the blockages out, cleared a path for the information. And since then, and it's like after that happens, that's like the let me help you with this thing. And then after that, it's up to us to do it. They're not going to keep coming back and helping you out if you allow yourself.
That's the truth. They give you the gift, and you got to pick up on it or not, or don't.
Yeah, because they're not going to do this for you. They give you the information because they can't. That goes against free will, the law of free will. Like
karma they can't engage in your growth. They have to say, here it is.
Right. And then you choose what you do with it. Yeah. So they give it to you, and then whatever you choose to do with it is your choice. That's your decision. They can't force it. So that was like a one-time thing. It was like a boost, like a jump start. And after that, it just went on.
Sam, like from my experience with zapping and with the energy stuff or whatever it is, but so many diverse ways. Like there's probably 20 different experiences and sensations and whatever. Like it's just so diverse.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's
amazing. So I wanted to ask you one more thing about the fellow who told you get out now or you're going to die. Do you recognize who that is? Have you been in connection with that particular fellow since?
I have. Well, yes and no. I have some ideas, and I'm not at a point where I want to assign it to some particular entity. Because when it comes down to it, we're all one thing anyway. So I don't know who in that, like at that particular time, who did that. I have my ideas, and when I'm able to go back up there now, I'm at a point where I want to go to that specific place and address that specific time and focus on that when I go back there. I haven't been able to go back there in a couple of years because of moving across the country, and now with I plan to go back up there this summer, but obviously that's not going to happen now.
Well, you got to come up my way first. You won't believe the energy up here. I just had a lady up here last week. It was crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy.
My underwear's bunched up.
Yeah. So okay, go. So then tell us a little more how your story unfolds. Oh, okay.
It's actually not a question, but I got this impression from listening to you, and I just got this. Oh, there's this quote that you should say, and the quote is this, which I think really sums up a lot of what's going on in the Sasquatch community. And I was talking about Brian about this, about people thinking of Sasquatches as demons and devils, and that they're paranormal. And the quote was this. I forget where the quote came from, but it goes, one sees God as a demon until he's made whole enough to perceive him. And to me, that's what it is. That's a big part of the Sasquatch saga, is to struggle through the demon and the fears and the who is this, and until you're made whole enough to say, oh man, this is, then you have the awakening, and you have like, this is part of the all one. This is part of the God stuff, right. And it is a good part of the God stuff and the all one.
Yeah. And there's, you have two paths to take when you realize that. And a lot of people especially on like the science, flesh and blood people, I know they've experienced these things, but they won't admit it to themselves, and they deny it, and they're losing the opportunity to make such a valuable connection with the Sasquatch people and themselves, you know. And that's the thing that we were talking about with the they give you the opportunity and you make the decision. We've made the decision to go with what we're given, but if you don't make that decision, they can't keep coming back to you and forcing you into, hey man, you're not hearing me. They're going to do it, but they're not going to like just, those flesh and blood people are missing out on so much.
Ron Moorhead, I did an interview of him, and it's like, I knew from talking to him that he's had incredible paranormal, I don't know what it is, it's, you know, because, but then when you try to pin him down to it, it's like, he dances around the edge of it, even though he wrote a book about quantum Sasquatch and the paranormal, right? He wrote a book about that, but then to try to pin him down on what his experience was, and he just skids around and he doesn't really want to admit that that all that paranormal stuff that happened to him was real.
Right. Yeah, because you attach it to your human ego, like who you want to be as your human self, or you're trying to portray to the world who you are as a person. So if you've already established yourself as like the guy, you know, or you're that flesh and blood science guy that always wants to get evidence, you know, to prove their existence, and you start having these mystical experiences, transcendental stuff, you have to go through a soul searching opportunity and like really dig down to find, you know, like, where's your truth at? Are you going to admit that these things are happening, or are you going to just hold on to your humanness and just be that person to play that role continuously? And it's hard for some people to let go because of the ridicule, you know, because they lose their friends, because people make fun of them, or, you know, and that's scary for a lot of people. So I don't fault people from, you know, not going with that.
Well,
but
it depends on. Yeah,
you're denying your truth.
Sorry, go ahead. You deny
No,
what?
You're denying your truth when you do that.
Sorry for interrupting. It depends on what their agenda is too. Like, I mean, for instance, I knew, I don't want to name names or whatever, because I don't, but whatever, but some guy was a scientist, and, you know, he told me, he said he can't, because his objective was to prove the Sasquatch existed, right? That's what he wants to do. He's not into the spiritual or all of that stuff. And now he may have experienced that, and I'm not even saying that he discredited it totally, but his reasoning was, look, I can't even get people to look at the tracks and the solid evidence. Right. If I start going off into you know, this bizarre, or people perceive as bizarre stuff, then I'm going to have no credibility. So it depends on what your purpose is in the pursuit, right?
Right, totally. But that's the thing, like when it comes down to it, like Sasquatch don't want to be made public. You know, we're not at a point on a human level where we can accept them for who they are. So they don't want to be, you know, brought out to the public right now. So that's why, you know,
yeah,
it's hard, and I understand, and I'm not unsympathetic, you know, to the flesh and blood side.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, Mike had a really good example the other day, and I don't want to name the guy's name or whatever, but some guy who was like years and years and years involved in it and whatever, and you know, he was looking for a wood ape and whatever, and then eventually all these supernatural, all these things started happening, and he just said, "I'm done. That's it." Yeah, exactly. He didn't want to go there. Yeah, because he doesn't want to release who he is as a person. Like that's right. We cling to our ego so much, and we cling to who we want or who we think we are so hard that awakening to the truth is scary, man. And it you know, it puts you through that, like that period of questioning reality, your reality, who you are, what's going on, and which is what's going on right now with the whole world, you know, on a collective level. It brings these things that open your eyes, you know, hard eye, third eye, everything gets brought out, and you're like, you can make the choice. Do you want to roll with this and see where it goes? Or do you want to deny that and just continue to live the life that you think you are? And I want to ask you a question. I mean, I've got my own ideas of it, but why do you think why do you think Sasquatch connect with certain people? There's a lot of different reasons in my opinion, but why do you think? I mean, because yourself, myself, Mike Carroll. What is it about us or other people that? What is it that why do they connect with us and not other people? What is it about us?
I think, like you said, there's several different reasons, and I think it varies from person to person. I think some people are just good ambassadors. Some people have a good way of speaking, or will actually put out their truth, in a good way.
Right.
So I think when you go into their area and they're there, they read you. They check your heart out. They look at your energy. They look at your aura. They get a feeling of who you are as a person, not necessarily who you think you are, but who you really are.
Right.
So they give you the test, and it just depends on where you go with it. So I think they test a lot of people, but a lot of people ignore it, or they just don't do what they should with it. And so I think there's just some people that maybe you were a Sasquatch in a past life, and you go out and they realize it's about you, or they know, or they're supposed to work with you in this incarnation for whatever reason. And so,
right.
They come to you, and for that, or I think that there's so many different reasons that it happens. It's just really hard to pinpoint on one particular thing. I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. But I think for me, it was just, they kind of reached out to me in the allyship of, we see your heart, we know where you are, and we love you,
mm-hmm.
Basically. And so, like I said, I'm still working through this stuff myself. You don't realize everything all at once, even though most people want it to be that way. It can't unfold that way for everybody.
What an amazing thing. I mean, to me, that's a big deal, that they don't just plop out there the facts and figures of what it means to be a Sasquatch. It does not bother them at all to have you struggle with something for 20 years or 5 years. Yeah. And then, oh, that's what it was all about. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that for them, the sense of timing is completely alien to humans. Because like you have a visitation when you're 8 or 9 years old, then not whatever goes on in your life, and maybe some other realizations, and then you begin to get, that's just amazing, and to be to follow you throughout your life, and then there's hints of from other life. There's hints of from other life of, like, you knew them, you were with them, or you traded with them, and they knew your family. That's just, what can you say about beings who go lifetime after lifetime, over ages, and they don't put any pressure on you to ever figure anything out. They just say, well, you're going to figure it out when you figure it out. And
because they know
that.
They know how all this works. So for us being like a little bit of a lower level, like lower evolutionary level, it's, spiritually, we're still caught up in this physical existence so much that we have lost connection with the spiritual side. Whereas they are born and raised, born into this reality with a knowing from the get-go. And they embrace that and they work with it through their whole lives. But we are born with a little bit of a knowing, and then culturally programmed to ignore it and just focus on being a good consumer or whatever, whatever agenda they have. And so we lose that. And that's part of this, that's part of life, is realizing your trueness. And they're already a little bit ahead of us when it comes to that. And so they know that if you don't get it this time, you can come back next time, you'll get it, but they're going to work with you at the pace that you're open to. They can't be a crash course. They got to wait for you to get to the point where you understand.
I like what you said about being physical. To me, I don't have any issues with the Sasquatch being physical and being nasty to people and running them off their land. To me, it's like there's stuff going on there, whether it's whether they're the animal nature or something else is going on there. To me,
Right.
all the people who say that they're physical, they're animal, they're mean-tempered or whatever, I give it to them. That's also what they are.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It can be.
Well, I mean, it's just like wolves. You can be friends with a wolf pack, and then there's other wolf packs that you would never want to go around.
I think it depends on the connection they've had with you. Like you said, there are some very strong past life connections with people,
Right.
so they're not going to react with them like that. And also, it's how you just how you go in there with respect for them or whatever, just common, that kind of thing. Because personally, I've never had a bad experience with them. They tested my metal once, but I've never ever had a bad experience.
Right.
And that's because of my heart and whatever, and my connection with them, and
your perception of it, your overall perception of all of it,
Right.
So
right.
And so, yeah, if you go into it with fear, you're going to get fear, which is what I got. If you go into it kind of nervous and you're walking through the woods and one pushes a tree over near you, you're going to crap your pants, man. There's just, if you go into it, and because since then, you have trees pushed over near me. I've had branches snapped, and had run right up to, the edge of the trees. And a normal person, would just die of fright from that. But if once you understand, you learn that that's their way of communicating sometimes, or sometimes they're just joking around with you. It's just a different thing. So for example, I'm sure you've had something happen to you that would scare the living crap out of a normal person.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had stuff happen to me where people would never go in the woods again.
Exactly. Right.
But with me, it was a magical, mystical, spiritual, wonderful experience.
So for a normal person, they would go on YouTube and talk about how they almost got killed by a Sasquatch and they barely made it out of the woods alive, And
well, hey, guess what? If a Sasquatch wanted to kill you, they're going to kill you.
Dude, we wouldn't
there's no chance or fluke that you make it out alive. If they actually intend to kill you, I pretty much think that they're capable of doing it.
There wouldn't be a single person leaving the woods if that was their intention.
No, but I could tell. Right, Sam. I could say to all of those people, yeah, you were scared and you thought they were aggressive and whatever, but all those people are telling their stories. They're living to tell the stories. I've heard one or two stories from the past about them killing people, but it's very, very rare.
Well, that's the thing. Very rare. Sure. I'm not going to say they haven't. Mosquitoes kill people. You know what I mean? If you go in there and you are just a complete jerk, or you're doing something, or you come too close to a little one, or you're just doing something, you're in an area you're not supposed to be in, or you're not picking up on the little signals they're trying to give you, like the little hints they'll give you, and you're not picking up on it, or you're just being like, way out of line, they're going to let you know for sure. No doubt about it.
I will say one thing though. They have. I have been zapped where it felt like, and I say there's so many different experiences with the energy and the zapping or whatever. But like felt like I was walking through, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, where you're kind of like you can hardly walk. It's almost like there's a force field in front of you. Right. And I think that that might have been because maybe in a sensitive area where there were kids, or just some reason they didn't want you around there. But it wasn't. It still wasn't like threatening. It was just like, we don't really want you here today or something. Have you experienced that?
Yep. A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. And I took that as threatening, as danger, beforehand when I was younger. When I would experience those, that was always like before I understood how energy works, that those messages were threatening to me, like I was in danger. But it's not. It's a warning. And those are the subtle messages I was talking about. Those things get put out. And if you're stubborn and push through that, and I've done this is how I know, if you're stubborn and you push through that, they're really going to let you know that you've crossed the line. And it's not in a way that they're going to harm you. but they're going to let you think you're going to be harmed. You know, it's like working with a negative astral entity. You know, they're going to do everything they can to make you think that you're going to die, but you're not. You know, you're going to feel like your life might be threatened because you didn't listen when they were trying to tell you. And, you know, they don't want, and they're protecting something or somebody. It's totally understandable. I mean, we would do the same thing, you know. You give a warning, someone tries to come in your house, you're going to give them a warning. Like, no, don't do that, man. Like, just stay out there, you know. And if they come in your house, game on, you know. So it's not.
I also like to look at them sometimes like tribes. I look at the Indian tribes. I think the American Indian lore is much closer and influenced by the Sasquatch lore. But you have the tribe, right? They have a bunch of people, and they always have like a healer and a chief, and sometimes a wisdom keeper. And then if you look at the tribes, there was hundreds and hundreds, and I don't know if even 1,000 tribes in the United States and Canada. And some of those tribes were actually pretty nasty people, and they would go around doing really nasty stuff to other people. And I kind of think of like that, and that there's bound to be some nasty tribes who have a grudge against white people and against human beings. And, you know, so I to me, I have no conflict with that. I'm not saying all Sasquatch are angels and holy men and healers and stuff. And I'm not saying that they're all demons either. I think that they are way closer to, on the overall big picture, they're way closer to what the American Indians were doing, you know?
And I don't want to discount or discredit someone who's had an experience with maybe a negative experience. You know, I'm sure it's happened, and I'm not going to say that it hasn't, but from my experience, even the scary encounters were just misinterpreted by me. So, and I think a lot of people have that same experience. So sure, there's probably some experiences that are not pleasant. I don't know the history to it. But again, I think the majority of accounts we hear are just people misinterpreting the aggression.
I think so too. Or else because, you know, people are like running out of the woods to their car and jumping in their car. Ain't no way you're gonna run out of the woods for like 500 yards.
Right.
They wanted to get you. They just want to chase you and scare you. Get out of here.
Exactly.
Well, your greeting crunch sounds like it's aggressive, but it's not.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not.
You know?
And
but it sounds like it is. If you didn't know what you were hearing, you'd whoa.
There's a place that I've gone to before, and there's one specific place that I would drive by in my truck, and they would be right there, and they would huff. They would do a greeting huff, and it would be right. If I had my window down, you could almost feel it. You know what I mean? And it scared me. You know, just your physical reactions or just your natural body reactions. It's scary. You know, so you're driving, you come past this little tree, and all of a sudden you just hear, you know, and you're whoa. You know what I mean? It scared you, but you just have to like laugh about it and realize that they're just saying hi.
Right.
You know?
So I wanted to ask you something. When I want to ask you if you feel the same way that I do, and you don't, obviously I'm not trying to coach you to. I'm just wondering if you do. Like when I got the love zap, that all connected, all knowing feeling when I was weeping, and I just felt the connection to everything. Right. And it's that no judgment vibration where they reside. It's just the most beautiful, accepting, no judgment feeling that you can imagine, and it feels like a universal love. And I think my opinion is that is what they are trying to read. I'm getting the energy when I'm saying every time quite often when I talk about something that they want me to talk about, they give me this, yes, man, you're saying it right, and I'm getting that right now. But I think that they want to reintroduce us to that because I think that transition or the conscious shift or whatever is going to take place. Yeah. That's how it has to be. It's got to be that vibration of no judgment or whatever. That to me is that's the main thing that I care about, because I think that that's the whole crux of the biscuit, so to speak. What do you think?
That energy, that love zap, that's us. That's what we really are. And they're giving us a taste of what we really are and where we come from, like where we come from.
Yes.
And it feels like home when you get it. But we don't experience it in this physical world. And so when we get it, it's just like coming home to your mom's house, you know, and she's already got like the dinner laid out and everything you liked as a kid, you know, and it's just like that loving embrace of home. And we don't experience it here because that's part of this life is coming away from that, getting put in this mess. Yeah. And so when you get to that point with them, they're going to give you that taste of us again, like your real self. Like that's who you really are, is this, you
Yes.
are love, you know? So,
yeah.
and that's what happened to me after the fear experience. I went back home. I was living in Georgia at the time, and I went back home just with my mind and everything blown wide open after that. And so I started going out more and found, you know, a group I wanted to work with, which we all know now. I was guided to the place to work with this specific group. You know, it wasn't just happenstance that I stumbled across them. So I found this group and started working with them. And I could go on a while about how I got to know this group a little better, but it would take a while. But basically I went there one day and felt the energy, knew something was weird. So I wanted to go back there, brought my family back there one day. We went on a hike and we're walking and we're hearing footsteps in the leaves around us, you know? And so my wife, I was walking with one of my sons and my wife was with my other son. She was kind of behind me and she's like, hey babe, somebody's, you know, walking behind us. And I was like, I know, I hear him. She's like, but there's nobody there. And I was like, I know, you know, walk with me. So she walks with me and they still, you know, there's still footsteps behind, like following us. And so we walk around and come back out the other side of the trail. And that feeling, the energy went away. And she said, I don't like this place. I don't want to come back here. I don't like the way it feels. It feels weird. And I was like, I understand, you know, that's fine. But I knew in my head, I was like, this is my place. I'm coming back here. But also when we were there and that was happening and we could hear the footsteps behind us, we got chased by a blue jay the whole time we were back there. And this is important. I'm going to get to this. This blue jay harassed us, chased us, just, you know, screamed at us, just basically chased us out. She's like, God, what is up with this blue jay? So between the footsteps and the blue jay, and it was just a really like powerful experience. So, you know, we went home and I was like, this is my spot. So I kept going back to the spot. Every time I went back, there'd be new tree structures that I would see. Big tree structures, man. Like, you know how the southern pines are in Georgia, like lodgepole pines. You know, they're real tall and skinny, so you can do all sorts of crazy formations with them. And so every time I went back, I just see more and more. So one day I went in and went off trail and went back into this area. And I'm walking around and I'm like talking out loud to them, you know, just because I knew somebody was there. I wasn't sure who or what at the time. I had an idea. And I'm complimenting all the tree structures, telling them like, you know, like, wow, this one's really impressive. I love what you did with this one. I don't know how you did this, but it's really impressive. And so I'm doing this for a while and I hear footsteps again in the leaf litter, and they came up, like come from behind me. I hear, you know, one set of feet, and I turn around and look, and when I turn around and look, another one comes up from this way, you know, crunch, crunch, crunch. So I look at that one, and when I look at this one, another one over here comes crunch, crunch, crunch. So there's three of them, and they're you know, they have like a triangular formation around me. They're kind of flanking me like a military unit. And so every time I would look at one, the one behind me would come closer. So it was like a diversionary tactic, you know, to get close to me without seeing them. And so they got within.
You were actually seeing them?
No, this is the thing. I could hear their feet.
Okay.
And so they got within 20 feet of me. And when I would look, I could hear their feet, I could smell them, and I could see the impressions in the leaves. And so when they kept walking closer and closer, and every time I'd look, you could see the leaves being depressed. Super surreal, super
Wow.
like, but the energy was not scary.
It's like movie quality. That's movie quality.
And it was
Strangeness.
so mesmerizing. And I was like, not scared. I was just like, whoa, you know, like this is crazy. So they came within like 10 feet of me, broad daylight, couldn't see them, totally invisible. And I remember saying something like, hello, you know, because what do you do? And and it got totally quiet. No bugs. And you know how the South gets in the summertime with like katydids and cicadas. It was
loud.
Yeah, totally quiet. Nothing. And just that love poured in. And it just completely blew me away, man. Never felt that up until that point. And it was, I don't know how long it was. It felt like 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Brought me to tears. Not sad tears, but happy tears. You know, it just felt so euphoric, so much love. Brought me to tears. And then as quickly as it came upon me, it just stopped. And there was a message, and it said, you can go now. And I was like, all right, thank you. And so I left. They didn't leave. I left. And so I walked back, you know, and I thanked them. I was like, thank you so much. And I went back and I walked down the trail. I remember calling my wife and telling her, like, I don't know what just happened here, but that was absolutely amazing. And she was like, that's cool. You know, obviously you're not going to understand it unless you feel it. So she was, that's cool. So went home. Other things happened. They started coming to my house after that. But what I wanted to get to was that following fall. So this was about 6 months after my fear experience, was when this love energy thing happened. I went back a couple months later to the cabin again. So it would have been a year after the fear experience. And I was out fishing one day, and the fishing was kind of slow. So I figured I would go back to the spot that I was camping at the year before and just check the spot out. I just wanted to go back there. I know why now, but at the time I just was, you know, I figured I just wanted to go there for no reason. And so I took the boat there, tied the boat up, I walked to where I camped. And right where I camped, on the ground, deceased blue jay laying there right underneath where my hammock was. And I didn't realize the connection at that point. I just thought it was a gift, you know, but eventually it hit me that, and this was like something that was, you know, shown to me later. This was two parts of the same lesson by the same beings, 1,200 miles apart. And then the blue jay that was us with you in Georgia.
Right.
That's saying we were there.
Yeah.
We were absolutely, we were there.
Right.
Yeah. And
you know what I love about them is that, you know, time does not exist for them. You know, no time, no space. Is that I can, you know, they will leave me a message or a glyph or something like 5-6 years ago. I don't understand it until 5 or 6 years later. And then when you put it together, when you understand what it means, and then you look back at the old one, there's no way it was a coincidence. They knew that you were going to understand it at the time that you did, right? So they're just phenomenal. They're amazing.
Yeah, they've done this since then too. Like I went up, I think this was in 2016. I went up and I was walking down the road back to the cabin, and it's several miles long and it's gated at the end of the property. So you have about 2 or 3 miles of road that you can walk with, you know, it's just all yourself. And it's not really a road. It's more like a trail that you kind of drive through. But every morning I get up and walk down this road. But one day a tree had fallen across the road. So leave me something, but you're going to have to make it kind of obvious because I tend to be kind of bad at noticing like glyphs and things that they'll leave me. So I was like, it has to be obvious. It has to be right in my face for me sometimes to see it. And Well, that night they came to our campfire and sat on the other side of the tree line. They didn't come into the campfire area. They just sat right on the other side, you know, where they felt comfortable. My dad even acknowledged them that night. He walked over to the edge because he was looking to see if he could see something because he heard them. And he was like, something's over there. And I was like, I know, someone's over there. But he couldn't see them. But anyways, I asked them, you know, to show me something if they would like to. When we went home to Georgia, when I got back to my house, we opened up our garage door. And there was I opened up the garage door. There was a maple leaf and a beer cap bottle of Molson Canadian, which is the beer that I drink when I'm up there, sitting in my garage on the floor.
Molson Canadian.
And I looked at my wife and Santa, we both looked at each other, and I looked at it, and I looked at her, and she just went, you know. So
yeah,
they do some amazing things, man.
I got given a mole once. I mean, it just blew my mind because, you know, you can't even find a mole. Nobody goes around and picks up moles. But I was in Georgia, and I was staying in this motel, and behind the motel there was like this little trail that goes up behind the hotel, and it's like basically the motel was cut into a hill. So I went up there, you know, I started seeing these tree glyphs and stuff, and not tree glyphs, it was kind of strange structures. Like there was one tree, it was about this big around, that was hanging about 30 feet up in the air, and it was like 5 feet or 4 feet off the ground, right, at just about eye level. So I went, oh, I'm going to go back and get my video camera and come out and video this. But the thing was, is this little trail went from the parking lot all the way up to somebody's house up there, and it was like about like this. So you had to, like, if you reached out, you could have touched the ground. You know what I mean? That's how steep it was. So you had to watch where your step was.
Right.
So I went up there, and I was watching the ground because I was in flip-flops, right? So, you know, it wasn't exactly hiking kind of gear. So you have to be really careful where you step on flip-flops or something like that. I go up there, and then I start to take this picture, right? And so I'm taking a picture of the video of the tree that's hanging down and some other kind of stuff that was going on up there. And I thought, that's actually pretty cool. And then I turned around. I'm on the trail. The trail is like that red Georgia kind of sandy clay.
Yeah.
And it was only about this wide, right? So basically, that's as wide as the trail was. It was like a path. So I'm up there, I shot the video, then I turned around and took 2 steps down the trail, and there was this mole. It was like just freshly killed mole, soft, perfect condition. I don't know how they killed them. And I'm going, I mean, because there's no way I couldn't. So I basically walked up, turned around, and came back, and somewhere in there, that mole was directly in the center of the path, and I would have had to step on him coming up or coming down. So to me, it's like completely invisible. Where I was like 5 feet off to my right was the cutoff that went down. I was looking down at the roof of the motel, and on the other side, it just went up into just thick brush and stuff. There's no way it was thrown there. It was placed there. So I mean, and that's so. When you said the thing about the bird, I mean, the thing about the moles, right? In my yard in Savannah, this was like a 8-hour drive away from Savannah, was where the motel was. My yard in Savannah is just loaded with moles. And I was going moly, 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 you know, mole, mole. And so the Sasquatch up in Clayton, Georgia, had moles in my yard. Because I mean, who ever heard of? That's the same connection. I had moles in my yard. And they're saying, we know you from Savannah. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
8-hour drive away. And that's the same thing it's the same kind of thing as, you know, you had the blue jay, you know, up there, and then the blue jay in Georgia. So
yeah, did you hear the static just then when you were telling that story?
No, did I? Did it
I'm
static?
getting it on my end, so somebody was definitely
Yeah, so it was a good story. Just kind of connected together. They can do that, and they do that.
So yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that, Michael, that, you know, that mole was there because of the connection because you would be able to pick up on that. Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's funny because, like, for instance, if I'm driving down the street or whatever and I see a chipmunk or a squirrel get hit or whatever, I burst into tears. I'm so sensitive about little animal and whatever that they've never given me a dead animal because I think that they know that I would not be able to handle that. But so they know,
Yeah.
They know you and what you know. They know what to give you and according to who you are or whatever kind of thing. So I've had a lot of feathers,
Yeah, and I don't think that they go out and kill an animal. That's, you know, I think that if they were to do something like that, they would probably find one that was on its way out naturally, you know, and then present it to you or something. I don't really, because it was hard for me to think, like, why would they kill a blue jay to show it to me, you know? And I don't know that part. So to me, it's like, I came across a dead hawk once, and it was placed right in my path, a red-tailed hawk, and it was an old hawk, and I just don't see how it would have fallen where it fell naturally. Right. So I don't know if say maybe there's one that had died and they found it and then they bring it to you, or if it's one that's, you know, naturally dying and so they bring it to you. I'm not really sure how that works. So I know some people take that as morbid, you know, if they kill an animal and give it to you. I don't really understand that part, but I don't think.
No, my only point was is that, you know, like, I wouldn't like that, so they don't give me any. So I think that they give you, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, they do some cool stuff, man. And it's not always obvious, like you said. It's some things make you think, and that's part of the message, you know, is to open you up to more things and more opportunities, and some of those things that they can do, just, you really have to, it's hard to wrap your head around some of these things, and that's a lesson, you know. They're just lessons. Be like, they can show you what they do. They're like you know, those powers like sooties or whatever, and they just every time you experience something, it just opens you up more and more, because you just realize, like, the potential of what can happen.
So there's a new feature on the Pork and Beans show. We've got the Pork and Beans mailbag, where our many fans, they can send us a letter, ask either Pork Cunningham or Frank Oliver Beans a question, and so I mean, I'm just getting bombarded with letters here. It's unbelievable. Wow. The fan mail we're getting. So let's see. Let's pick one out at random, okay? Let's see who this is from. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the postman said I got to go and pick it up at the actual depot now. It's just too much mail. So, you know, the fan mail is just coming in like unbelievably. Okay, so anyway.
Do you have a forensic expert to see whose handwriting it's in?
Okay, this is from Mrs. Edna Ricketts from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it's addressed to you. Says, "Dear Mr. Beans, I think you're a sexy beast. Are you taken? Are you available? Are you betrothed?" But that's not her question. You can answer that too. You can answer that too for Mrs. Ricketts. Like, obviously she says something bad about me, but I'm not going to mention that. She doesn't seem to like me. She seems to only tune in for you, Frank. But anyway, she said, what was the biggest foundation builder, or biggest eureka moment in your life? What's she saying?
Biggest eureka moment in my life?
Yeah, Mrs. Ricketts wants to know.
Biggest eureka moment. Geez, my whole life has been like a merry-go-round of eureka moments.
Well, just give
the biggest eureka moment in my life. This there's many. One of them that was pretty good was there's this Indian, what do you call it, an Indian festival called Holi. That's where people get all kind of paint put on them, and then, you know, and it was sort of like this. The whole thing is it's all one, and all the colors of the rainbow and all that kind of stuff in it.
Yeah.
But I had a guru at the time, and he was going to do this thing where they spray water on you, and, you know, everybody throws colors and everything. So we had this cannon. He had this fire cannon that actually came off of a fire truck. It's just this thing that you can push it around. It's like a big giant hose, and it goes out. It's 40 yards or something. But anyway, what I was doing is I was volunteering that day to set up where the water cannon was going to be up on scaffolding, and then it had like a ring of scaffolding around it for like crowd control, crowd protection. So my guru came out there, was going to test the cannon, and I was one of the guys who was setting up all the scaffolding. So I was sitting there, and they cranked up that. They actually had to have a fire truck or something and hook it up to the main to pump up enough pressure. It's like a big diesel thing that puts up enough pressure to get this thing to go out 40 yards with like a huge thing. So I was standing there. There was about 6 of us on the scaffold, and he was out there testing it. Right, this is the day before the Holi festival. So he takes this thing and he's squirting it all over this big field of, this is Miami Beach. And then he took all the guys who were working on doing the service work, doing the volunteer work, and he squirted us, right? When he came in, I was standing basically right in front of him. So when he came, he went from whatever it is, left to right. And when he came to me, he just hit that thing, that water cannon just hit me, boom, right? And it was like really powerful. It was enough. You had to hold on to the rails. But what happened was it was like getting hit with a fire hose full of bliss is what it was.
Ooh.
It was like pure bliss. And it was just like saturated my whole, and I was like my whole being just left my being. And after that, I don't really remember too much. I started laughing and crying. And I remember walking, laughing and crying. And then I came down the ladder of the scaffolding, laughing and crying, and just ecstatic bliss. Found my way to my car, had a little work van, found my way to my truck, and I was laughing and crying. And I thought, I have got to go home, because if I don't go home now, I won't be able to drive, you know. So I kind of held it together, you know, tears ran down my face. I was just ecstatic bliss, and tears going down my face. So I'm driving. It took me about 25 minutes to get home, because from Miami Beach to where I live, 25 or 30 minutes. So I get home, park the car, go inside my house, and just completely lost it. All I could do is just sob, like, you know, like ecstatic bliss. And it just like, it just went on for like 3 days. I couldn't work. I couldn't eat. I couldn't talk. I couldn't communicate what happened to me. That was, you might call that a eureka moment. I mean, consciousness, that's the bliss. The Hindu saying is Satchitanand. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. That means truth, consciousness, and bliss. Or true consciousness is bliss. Or the truth of consciousness is bliss. That high bliss is what we are, is what it is what it all is. So I've had a lot of different experiences, but that one stands out as, it didn't actually transform me, because where it happened, there's no transformation. There's nothing. It's just bliss. You can't carry that kind of bliss into the normal reality and try to rationalize it or make sense out of it. It just is what it was.
How did that happen? Was it the guru's intention? That
he's a guru, man. That's what a guru means. That's what they do. The guru is the transmission of the knowledge of God or the transmission of the bliss of God or the grace of God. That's what they do. And they can turn it on and off. So, I mean, the other guys didn't get it well like I got it. That was particularly for me that day.
I got you. Okay, that's amazing. That is amazing. Well, Edna?
I don't know if it was 3 days. Anyway, so that's enough. So that's not enough of that for that experience.
No, that's fantastic. Anyway, Edna, thank you for your letters, and everybody keep the letters coming.
Ricketts, I hope you take some vitamin C for the rickets. That helps a lot.
Well, apparently she's a centurion. So, are you single? She wants to know if you're single.
Single, yeah, I'm single and ready to mingle.
Okay, Edna. Maybe you can address your next letter personally to Frank. Okay, let's get back to the important stuff. So, Sam.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
Okay.
Just pick up where you want to.
Where did we leave off?
You were just about to tell us about some stuff that happened last year and this year.
Oh yeah. All right. So, last year, do you remember the conference last year, right, Brian? The one in Washington that we all went to?
Yeah.
Well, while I was at that conference, kind of started off a whole new cycle of events for me. While I was at that conference, like the first night, I don't know if you remember, there was a thing where they were letting guests tell their experience stories up on the stage. I think it was the Friday night we were there. And while we were there, people were telling their stories. You know, Keith told me, he said, you should go up there and some of your stories. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not a big personal speaker or you know, I don't like speaking in front of crowds. It makes me nervous. And so I didn't do it. And that night when I was camping by myself. I went to my campsite, made my fire, was sitting there reading a book. And this message came in and it said, you need to talk about this stuff. And I said, you know, like, okay, I will. You know, you don't, when these messages come, you take them serious. You know, you don't argue back. You say, okay, you know, I got it. So when that happened, as soon as I acknowledged it and said, okay, you know, like everything in my mind organized itself, and all the stuff that used to be jumbled around and kind of confusing or whatever was like removed, and it was cleared out, and almost like you defrag a computer, and it was, you know, put back in an order where I was going to be able to talk about stuff more clearly. And acknowledging that happening, and I was like, wow, that was weird, you know, that was cool. And so anyways, there was more to the message that came into that, but a couple months later, after I got home, there was a connection, and the connection just came in, and I felt connected just straight to the source. And it overwhelmed me for about 3 weeks, and just kept coming in, you know. And I remember I talked to you a little about this, Michael, and I talked to Arla about this, you know, because I'd never felt this energy. I mean, there was just like this constant energy coming through me, and it would, you know, there'd be like tears puddled up right here all the time, just like so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, talking to Arla about this, I kind of got the sense that something was coming, you know, like something big was coming, and I was getting prepared for it. And she had the same feeling. So she told me a few things to look out for. And you know how Arla is, man. She's connected. She knows what's going on. And so Memorial Day weekend last year, we were going camping and going to a spot that we had been to before. And, you know, like I said before, the places that we end up camping, we're not just, we don't find these places by coincidence. You know, like these are places that we're meant to go to. And we had been brought to this place before. And so, you know, we went back there again. So on the way up to the camp spot, it's about an hour and a half from our house up in the mountains. And we're going up the mountain to our spot. And one of the hints, or one of the things that Arla had said to me, I noticed it on the way up. And I was like, and I stopped, and I said something to my wife, And I pointed it out to her, and she was just like, wow, that's crazy. So we got up to, our spot, we set our camp up, and it was a beautiful day, man. A ridge, and you can see north. It goes into a valley, and then it comes back up on another ridge line, and you can see up into Washington State from where we are. And it's just high desert all around. And it was a beautiful day. The clouds were rolling in. We were watching the shadows of the clouds in the valley. And then that afternoon, storms started rolling. It started to get cold. It would be in the upper 30s, and the wind was howling, and it was raining, and it was just miserable weather. I mean, only an idiot would stay out in this weather. So this guy loved it, and I just stayed out there. I sat outside, and I just soaked it all up. And so that night we went to sleep, and it was just a beautiful, quiet night, very at peace, like totally connected to everything. No fear, nothing. I mean, just loving it. Next morning, got up, and we were in the clouds because the clouds had dropped on the mountain. And we were in the clouds almost the whole day, just miserable, cold, sideways rain, And I think that this was part of the thing where sometimes you have to be miserable to experience these things. And that's part of the process, like fasting or being freezing cold or just whatever it is leads up to these like experiences. And it's, why in the Bible, they always say, went to the mountaintop and they were gone for a long time. You kind of go through this process that breaks down your humanness. And so anyways, went through that day. And that night, the second night we were there, I was laying in my tent, and it was just really windy night, so you could hear the wind swirling around the trees, and it was really cool. And in the valley below, I heard that tree snap sounds that I've heard several times to announce somebody's coming. And it was just loud, pop, and it echoed all through the valley, came up the mountain. And I knew someone was coming, someone was happening, or something was happening. And I mean, when I say like a second, I don't even know if it was that long, but after I heard that pop down in the valley, right by me in the tent was like that whistle. And I don't know how, they covered that much ground, or how she covered that much ground. But as soon as I heard that whistle, I heard the tree snap, it got my adrenaline going, naturally. And so I had to calm myself down by breathing. So I was breathing and pulling the cold energy into my heart to just calm my nerves. And when she whistled, or when I heard the whistle next to my tent, I took, a couple more breaths, and my body took one deep breath. And I didn't do this on purpose. This was an uncontrollable breath. It just deep breath. And all the cold air from the mountain, because it was in the 30s that night, all the cold air from the mountain came in, and it just went straight to my heart. And I saw my heart. I saw my heart center energy field come out, and it expanded. My whole tent was in it. It was just, I was in it. My tent was in it. Everybody in the tent was in it. And she was there. My teacher was there, who was outside of my tent. She was there, in there with me. When I expanded out, she was there. And we went in and out and came out the other side, and she was there. And we were just in that place of spirit. There was no physicalness. It was just us. We made the heart connection. Our hearts connected, and she was there, and she showed me books worth of stuff in a millisecond. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it came as a like a flip book, like, and a strobe light. And it was just like, just everything, books worth of stuff. At the time I thought it was like, oh, that was about a book. No, that was books worth of stuff. And then she showed me her name, and it was Vavion. And it was like I don't know how to explain it, but it was just her word It was just her name in a word, all capital letters. And it was like in my face. Like, you see this? You know, pay attention. This is my name. Never forget that part. And
Wow.
and then we went to the place of where we're all light, golden light. I was her, she was me, and every person that I've ever met, every person that I will meet, everyone I know currently was there, and we were all one thing. We were all golden light.
Golden light. That's pay attention, people.
And I came back. You know, there was more that happened, but when I came back, I remember waking up and I wanted to go out and be with her physically, and she put me to sleep. You know, because that's such like an energy draining experience, and I don't know how long it lasted, but for me it felt like a couple seconds is what my mind tries to rationalize it as. In physical reality it was a couple seconds, but it felt like an hour or more where we were. But I fell asleep and I woke up a couple hours later probably, and I remember sitting up and like rubbing my face and like trying to get like, am I real again? You know, just like I remember laying there rubbing my face like, wow, you know, totally blown away. And I fell back asleep again. And when I got up and I had actually like come fully back into my physical body, I remember the first thing I thought, and I'll never forget this because my life's been forever changed since this again, was the first thought that went through my head was, wow, all of this is bullshit. Like all the world, all of our drama, all of our, you know, things that we think so important.
Right.
It's all bullshit. It doesn't matter. Let go of it. That was the first thing that went through my head. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt with the love zap. It was nothing really mattered other than the connection and the love. It was,
right.
Yeah, that's a absolutely amazing experience. It's astounding. It's, I mean, you got the same kind of universal knowing, you know, that they're giving us or whatever, but in a really spectacular fashion.
And this thing about going down into the heart and then the heart exploding, that to me
that's amazing.
That's what they taught me about how to go invisible.
Yeah.
So when you can get to the level of energy, heart energy expands, and they call it the glowing, and it encompasses your whole body.
I was saying, because we went into we went into my heart, like into the portal, and we came out. It was like turning inside out and coming out into spirit. I don't know how to explain it.
I explain it like this: it's like those things, those time things that look like two pieces of glass with the sand going through there. What do you call those things?
Yeah, right. The hourglass.
So there's
hourglass.
The world we live in is at the top, but if you can ever go down through that into that little thing to where it goes to just one grain of sand, if you go through there, it pops out into a whole nother reality.
Into infinity. You come out into infinity.
Right. The inside is bigger than the outside.
That's an understatement, man. Yeah. This is so small compared to that.
Yeah. And once you feel that, you know that that's our true nature, and you know that that's where you want to be, right? At least in your heart. Yeah. So
I didn't want to be back there.
Yeah, it's life. Yeah, you can't come back unchanged from that. There's no question about that. It's just, that's a phenomenal story.
The ETs actually would take hundreds and hundreds of people up onto a craft, and they'd put them inside in front of these monitors. So this is reports from people who've been on the craft, right? And they'd go in these rooms, and there'd be like 100 people in the room, different ages, mostly kids and stuff. And they would run these rapid images on the screen, and to train the kids how to receive information in rapid imaging. And and now you're talking about your SASQUATCH teacher gave you rapid imaging. And in a way, it has something to do with, that's the speed at which our superior mind takes in information. It's rapid imaging. It's just You can take
Yeah.
in, like I said, huge amounts, vast amounts of images, of meanings, of stories, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it happens very, very fast.
Yeah.
So I just threw about 2 cents in there.
Yeah. It was symbolisms, and there was I remember there were certain things that stuck out to me. I remember seeing the infinity symbol. One of them was a DNA sign.
Oh, wow.
And
You
so
talking about the figure eight? The figure eight, you mean?
yeah,
Infinity
like
thing?
there was that, and there was the infinity symbol, you know, and that, because there's just
Yeah.
certain, it would be like, it would flash through, but there would be certain ones that would just really stick. And I don't know if she was trying to be like, pay attention to this one, or if it was just ones that I was grasping onto that I was familiar with. But she did it again this past Memorial Day weekend. We went camping in the same place, and she came that first night, and same thing. But this time she announced herself with an owl call. So first thing in the night, you know, laying there trying to get to that point of going to sleep, she announced herself, and it was the same thing. But this time it was like projected onto the back of my eyelids while my eyes were closed, and it was like, you know, just real quick. And then she said, now go enjoy your day with what I have shown you. And I said, okay, thank you. You know, and it was,
Go
more
ahead.
stuff. No, I was just saying it was just more stuff leading up to where we are now. So,
You know, that infinity symbol, I got a really, really short, quick story about that. That's amazing. This is actually to do with Sue and I, but it's all connected. I mean, you know, the whole thing is connected. But I was sitting on the John, of all places, and I'm just sitting there, and I seen a vision right in front of my eyes, like an actual holographic vision. And it was like 2 people facing each other. It was like the classic twin flame kind of thing, right? And I knew in my heart, I knew it was Sue and I, right? Right? I knew it was us. You know, you just have that knowing.
Yeah.
And that infinity symbol, the figure 8, whatever, was swirling around us, outside of us. And it kept getting closer and closer and closer and closer into us until it went right inside of us.
Mm.
So,
yeah.
Unreal, eh?
Yeah. It's good, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, tell us how you met your teacher. How did that go down?
That was my meeting over. Was the first.
Oh, that was it? That was it?
That was it.
Oh.
That was our heart. That was where we made the bond. We made our heart bond and connected, you know. That was the ceremony, I guess, the ritual. So
that's one of the best stories I've ever heard.
That's an amazing story. I mean, we're talking about stratosphere stuff here, and you know, this is up there, you know.
Yeah.
But yet it's not paranormal. I mean, it's not outside the realm of what human beings can do. I bet you if you look at it back now, like you said in the first part of the show, was, you know, the paranormal is kind of normal. The unusual is just kind of everyday stuff for you.
It is, and because we've been boxed into believing what is possible by science. And the only reason that is because science is very limited at what it can measure and record, you know, and these things can't be measured and recorded right now. So to them, it's not real. So these people I say these people, but all of us at some point in our lives, we're beholden to what science proves as what's real and what's not real. And so, you know, until they can accurately record and measure this stuff, like it's not going to be real to science. It's growing, it's getting there, you know, with like quantum physics and stuff like that is kind of starting to be able to put a little bit of it to the eyes of the masses, but you just have to experience it, and words can't describe it accurately enough.
No, but you're never the same once you feel that love vibration. You can't come. Well, you don't want to be, and you can't be. So I was going to ask you. So give us a couple of your favorite stories, and maybe with different kind of aspects that to them. You know, like kind of different kind of, you know, as far as, you know what I mean by aspects, like different abilities they had, or different just different kinds of examples of what they can do, or just favorite stories kind of thing.
One of my favorite stories, and Arla was with me when this one happened, because this was wild.
Hold on a second. Can I just say this? You're talking about Arla, right? Like, she's a good friend of mine too, right? Like, she's probably going to get really mad at me for saying this. And sorry, I'm sorry for interrupting you, Sam. But I actually heard her voice. I actually heard she talked in my head one time. Arla.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was good. It was good. I heard her voice. I heard her voice in my head, like it was her telling me something. Like, alrighty then.
I totally believe that.
Yeah, Arla is a beautiful being. She's a beautiful soul, beautiful being, and she opened my eyes to a lot of things.
If she takes you under her wing and she pays attention to you and teaches you in her subtle, not telling you how it is, but you got to discover it yourself way, then you know that you're on a good track. You're on a good path. Because she is very, very, very wise. So I apologize. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to throw this thing out there that as a yogi, we're going into like that divine light, the pure blue white light, the white light, right? That's like the light of the Godhead, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the golden light is the mother energy. The golden light is Mother Earth energy, Mother Earth herself energy. The golden light is the feminine energy, and it is the birthing energy. It is the energy that all of creation comes from, that mother energy. And then it is, so that mother light gives birth to the white light. So there's the mother God, the father God, if you want to put it in that terms. So when you were bathed in that kind of light, and you were shown that kind of light, not that many people understand how significant it is that it is the golden light. I used to be a photographer, and I called myself a golden light photography, because I understood what that was. And Black people have that, and women have that, and kids have that golden light. So,
yeah, everyone, because that's what we are. That's where I was taken, where I went was us. I mean, it was us to our core. Like, it was just us. It's where we come from. It's where we go when we die physically. When our body dies, we go back to this place. That's just where we are all one, and that's us in our nature. It's just, it was such a It took all fear of dying. All fear of dying for me.
Absolutely, I feel the same way. The thing is that knowing of the other side, they want us to kind of have that knowing here too, because then we have no fear. We can be brave and talking about them or anything. We can actually do our true work, and we're, it's how we're really supposed to be. We're supposed to remember that.
It removes all separation, the whole illusion of separation, which is Maya, which is what we live in. It removes all that separation, because we're all one thing manifest into separate things. And once you realize that that illusion isn't real, you just don't.
Absolutely. No. You feel the connection to everything. There is no prejudice. Yeah. I mean, even your worst enemy, when I was in that got that love zap, which, is my version of what you experienced, a different way, because they're all different. Even your worst enemy, you can't judge them. It's just like, you just accept everything. It's just a beautiful, it really is who our true nature.
Because
it's a gift, and it's a gift when we are shown that. But, I just wanted to tell you, I wanted to get back to that story of yours, but I just wanted to say, a lot of the people that I've talked to, from my understanding, from my journey, whatever, and from what Sasquatch are teaching me about, you are so right in tune with, we sound like we're just like almost identical journeys with different experiences. Like your heart, everything. I'm just so proud of you, man. You're just, you really got it, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So so tell us the rest of your story, or what you were going on stories before I rudely interrupted you, which actually we got some good stuff talked about. So I guess it was okay. So what were you saying?
Yeah, that was good. This was just this goes back to the like the eye shine, the eye glow that they can do.
I've never seen that. Weird. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll actually go. I haven't experienced it except for one time on the West Coast. So I don't know if this is something that they only do in certain places or what. But I experienced eye shine at a SETI on the West Coast last year while I was there. But this time was in one of our camping areas in Georgia. And this was just one night. We were walking down the trail one night. This is the trail where we met Keith's teacher, or where Keith's teacher's been. And there was the trail is like you're walking down the trail and there's a hill that goes up, and then there's another hill that kind of goes onto a flat area. It goes down a little bit and flat. And we were walking. There was a group of us, and I could see the one that was there, and it was like that. It was like a bluish green and a white, kind of sparkles a little bit. And I was looking at it, and he kept looking over this way. So you'd see like the two glowing eyes, and then they would turn to one, and then he would look back. So it was like looking over. So I looked and saw the one that he was looking at, and I was like, oh, there's another one. And I was standing behind Arlo. She was kind of standing. We were standing like this. And we were looking at the one that was looking at us, and I could feel one walking behind me down the hill, but his belly crawling down the hill. And I turned on and looked, and his belly crawling down the hill, like they do that Spider-Man walk that can be a little bit creepy looking. But while we were looking at the one that was looking at us, all of a sudden it went from the bluish green sparkle to bright white strobe, like that. And we were both like, whoa. And she was like, thank you. And then we kind of sat there for a little bit, and we got that feeling again, like, okay, you guys should, go down the trail a little more. So we went down the trail, and another one came down the hill towards us. And I was with Jason Weaver at that time, and he walked like right in front of us. And it was really cool. But just the brightness of the eye shine and the strobe light was so wild to me. It blew me away, because that was my first eye shine experience.
You're only talking about the eyes, right? You didn't see anything else? It's the eyes you're talking about?
Because they were behind trees. They were like behind trees, peeking around the tree at us. So all we could see was the eyes and then their silhouette. But the eye strobe light was so wild to me. It was brighter than a flashlight. Just pop, 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 pop.
I find it really interesting, like you've experienced so many different things, and you probably haven't experienced some of the things I have or Michael has or whatever. They give you a mixed bag of what they want to show you. Like, for instance, I've had people touched by them, like physically touched when I was with them, but they've never touched me, and I've never seen eye shine. So it's kind of weird how that works, but
yeah, because I haven't seen eye shine in my spots in Oregon that I go to. I go to 3 spots in Oregon. Well, at one point, out of the corner of my eye, there's a field over here to the left when you're looking at the mountain, and it's not on the property of a SETI ranch. It's another property. And then there's a tree line over there, and I noticed in the tree line I saw 2 red lights and then 2 blue lights. And they were moving really weird, and just they would stop, and then they would just do this like weird movement, and I was like sitting there looking, and I was like, it just hit me. It's like, that's eye shine. So I got up and I walked over to the edge of the fence where I saw the eye shine from. And I was like looking and looking. And then right behind me, this bright white orb came buzzing right behind my head. And it went like so fast, and it moved down to the ground. It went around a tree, and it came back up and buzzed my head again. And it was such a cool thing to see. It gave me the chills, because it was, I don't really know how to explain it, man, but it just the way that it moved, so fluid, and it just went, came right back. And when I looked over at the eye shine, they weren't there anymore.
So do you think that they were in orb form?
I don't know. There was so much weird stuff that was going on that night, energy-wise. I really don't know. But that was the first time and the only time I've seen eyes shine on the West Coast. So I don't know why they seem more prone to do it. They do it all the time in Georgia, man. We saw it every time we went out there. So
What, the color lights?
yeah, the eye shine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eye
One of
shine-
the one of the most powerful lessons. Go ahead. Go ahead,
eye
Mike.
shine is the eye shine.
Yeah.
When thine eye becomes single, when thine eyes become single, your whole being will be filled with light. When that comes out of when it comes out of their eyes and it looks like a flashlight and it looks like this bright light, that's divine light. That's the soul light. And that's a really to me, that would be a gift. That would be like you were looking at it's like inside me is God, is what they're saying. There's God inside here. You know what I mean? And it comes out.
Yes.
That's really high. And you know, the reds and the blues and the greens, all those are all variation on that. But when it comes out light white like that,
Right.
there's no why people can't understand this and they think that there's some kind of like an ape. I don't know. You're not going to get into
No.
doing that.
Yeah, but gurus have talked about this, and devotees have talked about seeing gurus do this forever. And you've spoken about it with your experience in that auditorium that one time. People have spoken about it with Jesus. You know, these are things that happen that have been spoken about, but again, science can't prove it. You know, so it just gets washed away in that stuff.
You know, one of the most powerful lessons the Sasquatch ever taught me, like they give you some profound lessons, right? Like some like big time universal like lessons, if you know what I mean. And obviously you've experienced them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you were talking about orbs a little bit, and let me make this real quick. I remember one time Sue and I were taking pictures of orbs with our camera, and there was nothing, and then we saw a bunch of orbs forming, and then there was a huge amount of orbs forming, and then they all came together into like an entity. Like you could actually see a being that formed from all these orbs. And the lesson there is that this powerful entity's consciousness and was coming in from all different points of consciousness and areas. It was almost like, you know, like they say, God is here, there, and everywhere. Like this being, I knew that its consciousness was coming in from all different points of reference, or however you would say that. That's, yeah. I mean, they're so far in advance of us or whatever that it's, when you hear somebody say ape, you think, boy, you're ever missing out. It's just like, it's kind of sad. But I guess it is what it is. It's just where they are at their stage. But, you know, but yeah, that's how big and fast these Sasquatch people can be, you know, like, that's why I think, you know, like when you said they can put a glyph or something at your house, like when you've been like 30, 50 miles away or whatever, I've had the same thing happen, like 300 miles, whatever. They can be anywhere just with a thought.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's wild. Another story that I like to say, which kind of shows their capacity for caring.
Yeah.
And is, I've told this story before, but I love it. It's still one of my favorites. So when they started coming to our house, there was one window on my wife's side, there was another window on my side of the bed. And when they would come up to the woods, my window was facing the backyard, so it was fenced in. So it wasn't as easy to access. So when they were coming from the woods, the window near my wife's side of the bed was the quickest, like it was just right there. So they could walk up and just tap on that window. So like the first time they started tapping on the windows at night, you know, my wife was like, what is that? And I was like, that's a fingernail. You know, because you could hear like tap, tap, tap. And they would start coming up all the time. And they would always tap on her window. Well, after like a year or two of doing that, we had this neighbor across the street. And we lived in a cul-de-sac at the time in a neighborhood. This wasn't like our house was like in the middle of nowhere, you know. So And Ginger Lockwood, like her house, same thing. Her house is in a neighborhood too. That doesn't stop them from coming in. So people have to understand, like, if you live in a neighborhood, and even right now where I live right now, I live in a neighborhood, and they come in our house, they can go wherever they want. So you don't have to be in the middle of nowhere for them to come to your house. But our neighbor that lived across the street had a dog, little schnauzer, I think, and they would tie it to their tree in their front yard, and it would bark all night long. And it was really sad because they neglected this dog, and the dog sat outside and barked all night long. It would just bark at everything. So we'd be laying in bed at night, you just hear this dog barking. It was kind of irritating. So one night I had to roll the trash cans down the end of the driveway. So I rolled the trash can and the recycling bin down to the end of the driveway and, to the side. And when I did that, it got the dog riled up, and the dog started barking at me. And I went in the house, and I was like, talking to my wife, I was like, man, this dog, I swear, we got to do something about this, So we decided we were going to call animal control like the next day. And it's not the dog's fault, it's the people's fault, but we just wanted to address that. We felt like the dog was being neglected.
Right.
So that night, we're laying in bed, and like I said, they usually knocked on her window, but this time they came in the backyard, knocked on my window, and it was tap, tap, tap. And I heard something right behind my head on the wall behind my head. So it was like they missed it, or they kind of like rubbed against it to kind of let me know, like, yes, it's us, we're here, or it's me, I'm here. And so I stayed awake and I listened and just kind of paid attention. I didn't know if they wanted me to come outside or whatever. So I was trying to kind of like listen inside, and I heard outside, crack, crack, like a tree breaking. And I was like, all right, so this is going somewhere. And then nothing. I heard the tree break and nothing. It's quiet. So I fell back asleep. I got up the next morning and I went to go to work. And I totally forgot about all this stuff the night before. So I get in my car and I turn the car on and I look down the driveway and I see both my trash cans are in the driveway at the end of the driveway, but now they're in the driveway and they're turned backwards facing me. And I thought to myself, haha, guys, okay, I got it, because this is the kind of jokes they like to play. And so I get out and I go move the trash cans. When I move the trash cans, I look over at the tree across the street that the dog was tied to, and the tree was broken in half and it was pushed over. And the dog was fine. The dog was in the front porch, tied to the front porch now. But that tree was pushed over by them, and then they had to have that tree removed, and the dog was never outside again. So it was their way of being like, we got you, man, we got your back. And so they helped me out with that, and the trash cans were just like their way of letting me know, like, pay attention, this was us, And
yeah.
So that's one of my favorite stories.
There's, we're gonna have another part. We're gonna have you on again because I got a feeling we haven't even scratched the surface with you. I want to talk about maybe stuff like how their compassion, how they always support us in our times of need, which is absolutely they do, and their sense of humor we can talk about, and just stuff like that. But do you have anything to say about your feelings for the Sasquatch, or just something to say? And then, like I said, we're going to have you back again, like, soon, because wow, I just know we haven't even scratched the surface with you.
Yeah, just in closing, I mean, it's just love. That's all I experience is just love. It's it moved from fear and unknowing to just knowing that that's just it. I mean, I was introduced to a group a couple weeks ago, a new group, a mother and a father and a young one, and it was just that same feeling. It's just love, and it's always love. It always comes back to that. If you can get past your humanness and your fear, your irrational fear, that's all it is just love. And our fear is tied to our body, but we're not our body. So once you get past that illusion and just realize what the core of it is, it's just love, and that's it. I mean, that's just all it is.
I like that. Our fear is tied to our body.
How many do you think there is, that places where you've gone, had them interact with you in a knowing kind of way?
Canada at the cabin, Georgia, North Carolina, Oregon, and Washington. That's been my, I think I might have had an encounter in Alabama, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
So that's like east and west coast, north and south, and they're you were recognized and valued. That's saying a lot, you know. People need to know that, because there's some stuff going on out there where people will they think they're being followed by Sasquatch because they move or they move across the country or something, and they still have a Sasquatch connection. And I think that's part of it, is once they know you, they recognize you, accept you, then all of Sasquatch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once,
they communicate behind the scenes, equipment like what we're doing right now with our internet and our cameras to communicate long distances, but they can do that on the inside. Same thing, same message. Do you know anything about this guy? Oh yeah, I know him. You know, or watch out for that guy. You know, they've got that connection that they can do that. So
yeah, there's no doubt. Once you're known by one clan, they're all going to know you.
Yeah,
and they're all going to know you by your heart. And you know, like Michael said, there's different clans, and some of them might not even like you that much. But if you're connected with one clan, they're not going to mess with you.
No, and the group that I was just introduced to a couple weeks ago, I've been going to this place for 3 years, and they've given me little hints they were there, but it took 3 years to even get to the point where they wanted to show themselves to me, you know? And so you still have to prove yourself, and there's still a little bit of a hesitation from them sometimes. And, you know, you just got to work through that. So it's not like, once you connect with them, it's not going to just come to you everywhere you go. You still have to play the role, you know, and you still have to be that true self that you are, and you have to prove yourself to them, you know, because we can get sucked back into our humanness if we let it happen, and it happens uncontrollably, and it happens to them sometimes too, which is where I think, like, you know, sometimes they might lose their temper, or that aggression comes out because of something that we've done to them, and that's them coming into their humanness, their incarnation, physical self, and gets triggered by something, and then they you know, but they're a little bit more evolved than us, so they can control it better. They might lose their temper, but they're gonna come back and, you know, resolve it quicker than we do.
That thing of time is I think is so true, because here they could have just as easily walked up to you the first day and said, hello, what's going on, because they kind of know what's going on, right?
Right.
But they withheld. They knew what was coming, and they knew they wanted, for some reason, they wanted to build a relationship, build a trust, check you out, you check them out, and see if you're consistent. And it took them 3 years. That's not uncommon for in the Sasquatch community. It's like they might show you a few little glyphs, but you may not have anything else for a couple of years.
Time doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant at that point, because whether it's you come back. Yeah, whether you come back for 20 incarnations after that one, you're still going to be connected to them, and they know that. So no matter what form we come back in,
say that again, because that's going to go over people's head. Say it again about the
just like, you know, you're going to keep coming back here and working through your crap, your karma, whatever it is, stuff that you need to work on to get to you know, to the higher level where you just learn about yourself and the illusion, and you get to the point where you don't have to come back here. Well, they're evolved more than we are, so they're already a step above us spiritually, you know, so their incarnation is already at a higher level than ours is. So once you make that connection, though, it doesn't matter how many times you come back. You keep coming back, they'll keep coming back, and you can come back as something different, they'll come back as something different. They might not even come back in a physical form. They'll move on to another level, dimension, density, whatever you want to call it. That connection is always going to be there, and they know that. So time doesn't matter. So once you...
That's profound. That's so profound. I mean, one of the guys that I feel his energy around, right? He gave me a little vision, and the vision was him and me together 7,000 years ago at the time in Lemuria, from the time of the War of Lemuria, and the bond was there. Right. You know, and it's like, well, how many times did I interact with Sasquatch and all those incarnations, all those, I don't have no clue. But here I am in this incarnation being showed a 7,000-year-old heart contact.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
Wow.
It's like connecting with an old friend that you haven't seen since elementary school, only that elementary school was 10,000, 20,000, you know.
Who
whatever.
knows how far back we go?
Right. Right.
Yeah. You know, the time thing, I mean, they have taught me so much about time. I mean, a lot of my lessons are about time or whatever. So, and they hit you over the head with a hammer. They don't leave any, you know, they're very thorough when they want you to get something. It's not like the subtlety happens too, but when they really want you to get something, it's like, there's no doubt, right? I've had so many lessons on time. And like I said, yeah, it doesn't exist for them. Yeah. Like, you know, like I said, they could set something up in your breadcrumb trail 10 years ago that they know you're going to figure out, you know, 10 years in the future. And it's just like, time doesn't matter for them. They you know, and as teachers, what a great gift, right? What a great advantage.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Blue Jay they left me, it took me a few years to even understand that lesson. Like I totally went over my head when I saw the Blue Jay. I still have the feathers to this day. I kept all the feathers, and it took a couple years to even realize, like, hey, hello, you know. And then they showed me, and I was like, oh my God, you know. So they know.
Yeah.
I think the ETs are the same way. Right now, we have no natural comprehension about how far back we go with a relationship with them. The American Indians used to talk about it, about the ETs brought us here, we come from the stars, and the ETs have been watching us and helping us. That's the American Indian, but the Caucasian and African Americans, they don't have that connection to the Star Nation. But I think it's the same kind of an idea, because the contactees will go through generations, grandma, ma, the kids.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they had a way better connection to nature and to the universe and to the, you know, knowing what everything is all about than we did, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and I've had interactions with star people since then, since all this started. I won't go into those stories, but that's started too. And,
oh no, you will go into them, but that's going to be for part 2.
Right.
Man, I'll tell you, what a beautiful
stuff. This is important.
Yeah.
It is. It's very important.
Yeah.
And
absolutely important. Okay, so on behalf of Port Cunningham and Frank Oliver Beans, we would like to thank our special guest, Sam Chandler, and his stories and experiences in his heart are right up there with the best of them. And it was an honor talking to you. And we are going to have you back again.
It's always good that you're the ideal human. You're the archetype for the ideal human.
Well, you know what?
You have the kids, the Sasquatch, the ET, the great wife, then go on vacation, look at all those beautiful places. It's like, that's like the ideal human, you know what I mean? You're the future of humanity.
Well, Edna Ricketts thinks you're the ideal human.
Yeah.
She's a centurion.
Edna's got something for you. I think she's gonna contact you somewhere down the road.
Good.
Anyway, thank you guys. Love you, Sam. Love your stories. Love your heart. Love my distinguished co-host, Frank Oliver Beans. I didn't even insult him this episode, which is unusual. So you had too much love flying around.
You read this whole thing about, it was all slander and lies about, you know, the being in a hotel room and wanted in 5 states and territories.
Come on, that wasn't. Hey, man, that's not a lie. I mean, you're a wanted man because you speak from your heart and your mind. That's not, you know, that's not really allowed. You know,
it's
not really
slander.
allowed. Yeah, I don't think it was slander. I think it was pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
It's just your role as a person, man. It's just your person. It's not you. It's okay.
All right, guys. We are going to have Sam back, and we love you all, and we'll be talking to you soon. This is the Pork and Bean Show. This is Port Cunningham saying goodbye for now.